but it's time for Dollars and Cents with CPA Dan Geltrude, nationally renowned, and I'm so happy to have him on this program every Saturday at 7:45 a.m. to 8 a.m. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, King.
There's a lot to talk about, of course. One of the topics we're going to discuss this morning is student loans. And we literally have individuals coming out of school owing hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is quite absurd. And the Obama administration is supposedly going to forgive the debt of maybe hundreds of billions of dollars in the coming years. How did this come about, and can they do this?
Well, to begin with, when we talk about student debt, King, this is really, really a big issue. So I'd like to start with some of the facts related to student debt. So to begin with, right now, we have in this country $1.3 trillion of student loans outstanding. And that's made up by 44 million Americans. The average monthly payment is approximately $350, and over 70% of American students that go to four-year colleges have student debt. Their average debt is about $32,000, and about 20% of that group is actually late on making their payments on a monthly basis. So when you look at the enormity of student debt, it's really overwhelming. Now let's focus in on specifically what's called the Obama Student Loan Repayment Program. This is where we're talking about. The Wall Street Journal had reported this week that the federal government was going to be, over time, giving relief to the tune of about $108 billion. Now, at first, we may say, well, that's a good thing because these students are really overwhelmed by debt. So let's see what this program is really about. First of all, there's different types of programs within the student loan repayment program. But the main calculation, the main thing to know is that the calculation is based upon what the student can afford. So really it takes a look at what the earnings of the person are, and then they say, okay, how much can they really pay? And in new loans that are coming on the books, those payment plans go out over 20 years. The old ones go over 25 years. So let's say that your current student loan payment is $400 a month, just to pick a number. And the repayment program calculation is done, and it goes down to $200 a month. So there's a $200 difference. So now when you look at that over the life of the loan, whatever you're short in that $200 a month, at the end, that all gets forgiven. And that's where the $108 billion comes in. Now, of course, the question is, King, who's paying for that? Well, that's just another thing that we're adding on to the national debt. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch here that this student loan and the amount of debt that these students are taking on isn't really ridiculous, but everything gets pushed back to the taxpayers. We got to figure this out. And in real life here, to make it real, as you know, I'm a professor at Montclair State. And I asked one of my classes, how many of you have student loans? And do you know almost every single one of them raised their hands? And I looked at that and I said, wow, nobody is really getting through higher education without taking on more debt.
I mean, but isn't that like part of the problem, that the universities know that these students can get these gigantic loans and they just keep raising the tuitions? And I don't know what it's like at Montclair State, but a lot of universities, they're like country clubs. They're like nicer than the country clubs that we have here in South Jersey. Is it a matter that we need to rein in these universities with these increasing tuition costs?
Well, universities are actually recognized by the IRS as nonprofit organizations, so they're tax exempt. But in this particular case, when we see nonprofit organizations, we're seeing them as being very, very profitable, aren't we? So this whole higher education business is a pretty good model, isn't it? And you know, if you look at the big picture of this, and you're right, as far as these universities have become like country clubs, and we've heard about certain universities have like these recreation areas, and you have rock climbing, and you have saunas, and you have all these types of things going on. Well, universities are actually doing that because they're competing with one another. How are they going to draw these students in? And you're also right in terms of students are taking on more and more debt. So it's not like the consumer pool that these universities have are short on money. They're able to go borrow it. And let me say this, that is exactly what the appeal of Bernie Sanders was with these young people. I don't know if the young people really thought, King, that he could make college free. But what they did understand that he was addressing the problem, and he understood it, and that he was going to try to do something about it. They wanted to be heard. You know, and again, in my classes during that time when the primaries were going on, I would ask my students, hey, who are you supporting? Just to, you know, for the sake of discussion. And many of them were supporting Bernie Sanders. So I said, well, you know, what is it about him that's so appealing? Because on the surface, you wouldn't think someone like that would be appealing to a young person. And it always came back to the college tuition issue. So, you know, again, I'm an accountant. Let's go to the numbers here. The median household income in the United States is $52,000. When you look at what the average cost of a private four-year university is, it's $33,000 a year. And if you throw in room and board, it's $45,000. The numbers don't add up. It just can't work. If an entire household on average is making $52,000 and higher education is going to cost $45,000, and by the way, the $52,000 you still have to pay tax on. We're going backwards. It's not going to work. So this is a huge problem.
President-elect Trump, not even in office yet, made a deal between Carrier and it's actually, I guess, the state of Indiana. And essentially, some people are saying on the left that Trump bribed Carrier not to move their plant to Mexico. 1,100 American jobs are being saved. I mean, this wasn't a bribe, right, Dan? I mean, this was all legal, right?
Of course. This is no bribe. And the truth of the matter here is this is a big, big win for Donald Trump. It's a big win economically. It's a big win politically. And I would just say fasten your seatbelts at this point because I think that we're going to see a lot of this from Donald Trump over the next 4 years. This is the art of the deal. And what Trump understands as a businessman, because remember, when the people elected Donald Trump, I believe they elected him certainly not for his eloquence and the things he said politically. They elected him because they believed that he would be the guy who could fix the economy. And he's not wasting any time working on it. So what I believe Donald Trump sees here is the value of incentives. And it is not unusual at all for states to offer incentives. As a matter of fact, many times you see that states get into a bidding war between themselves to attract certain businesses to come to their state. That's how important these plays are. You really, really need to offer a business-friendly environment to bring these types of companies to do business in your state, or in this case, in our country. Now, Trump not even taking office yet, big win with Carrier. He's had a big win with Ford in keeping their manufacturing plant in Kentucky, and he's also had a big win with Apple in inducing them to start doing some manufacturing of the iPhone in the United States. So I think when he looks at the big picture, because I think he's a macro guy, he sees it this way. If we lose these jobs to other countries, we're going to be having people collecting unemployment. So the government, in effect, is going to have to help them, which they need to. These people need help. Well, why not use tax incentives, keep the jobs here, and put people to work? Because that's what they really want. I don't believe Trump believes that people want to sit home and collect from the government. These are hardworking people. They want to do their job. Let's create an environment where we can keep these companies here.
And on the campaign trail, Donald Trump had talked about tariffs. as a possibility where, we send America sends our goods to other countries. There's a tariff on us, but when they send it back to America, there essentially isn't any tariff. What are the kind of things that Trump can do to keep companies from moving to Mexico or China or other places?
I don't think we've heard the last of Donald Trump talking about tariffs. I'm not sure that that's not part of the art of the deal for him, where he's threatening those things. So he could use tariffs against foreign companies or companies based abroad that are trying to bring product into the United States. What I truly believe he's going to focus in on first is the tax code. And I've said many times that the tax code picks winners and losers. And let's take a look at what he's proposing. Right off the bat, he is saying corporate tax rates, he's taken them down from 35%, which is one of the highest in the world, down to 15%. So in the carrot and the stick, clearly in that move, and it's a big one, he's using the carrot. And if you look at how Donald Trump is approaching the economy, this is Reaganomics. It's cut taxes, it's cut regulation, it's controlling the money supply, and it's reducing spending. And that's exactly the path he's on. And I think these things that he's doing before he even takes office, he's showing America, corporate America, that he is very, very serious about stimulating this economy. And I think he's gonna take a very serious look at trade deals, tax incentives, and what is going to give these companies the incentive, the willingness to want to have their companies or their manufacturing based in the United States.
And we have national superstar CPA Dan Geltrude on the phone with us. His segment called Dollars and Cents every Saturday morning at 7:45 a.m. Isn't the problem, and we understand that the carrier employees were making like $25 an hour, and we all know that there's like slave wages in other countries that are maybe $1 or $5 an hour. How do we overcome the problem of U.S. labor just being too expensive?
Now, that's a real challenge, no question about it. And I don't know if there's a simple solution here, but I can tell you there's some things about this that Donald Trump is going to have to address along with Congress. To begin with, Obamacare. And Obamacare has made American employees that much more expensive. So as part of the repeal and replace that he's proposing, got to figure out a way to get those costs down to corporations in order to make an attempt to make American workers more competitive with those abroad. Now, let's look at it this way. Free market. And in the free market, you have to find ways to stay competitive. So I think you're going to have to see corporate management and labor unions are going to have to start working together and figuring out how this is going to be able to work out for them. I think you're going to see a very, very active Donald Trump as president, getting involved and meeting with corporate leaders. I believe he'll probably even meet with labor union leaders and try to say, how do we come up with a plan to stay competitive? Because in the end, King, we are all in the same boat. Government, corporate leaders, American workers, American citizens, we all rise and fall together. And I think Donald Trump probably understands that more than any president we've had in a long, long time.
Dan, it's absolute a pleasure to have you on this show. Dollars and Cents segment at 7:45 on Saturdays as we cover the very important topics of the world. Looking forward to your appearance on Channel 11. And for South Jersey viewers, it's 2:54 on your Comcast. So that'll be coming up Monday morning, I believe, in the 6 o'clock hour. And thanks a lot for coming on and really informing myself and all of the listeners, first of all, about student loans, and then about the carrier deal where President-elect Trump was able to save over 1,000 American jobs, and he's not even in office yet.
Amazing.
Thanks so much. Have a great day, Dan.
Thank you, King.
Dan Geltrude, Dollars and Cents.